The morning sun burst through Samuel's kitchen window, illuminating the shadows that had begun to creep into his life. He stood there, pouring coffee, unaware that his daughter Clara was about to change everything. She was smart and strong-willed, but today her anger simmered beneath the surface like a pot ready to boil over. "You don't care about me," she had screamed just days earlier, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're just like everyone else, racist." The accusation hung in the air like a thundercloud, rumbling ominously. When Clara took her feelings online, the small Midwestern town buzzed with whispers. "Did you hear about Samuel, the history teacher?" they'd said in shocked tones. His colleagues were stunned. This was a man who championed diversity, mentored kids from all backgrounds, and nurtured friendships in the community for years. Yet now it felt like the floor dropped away, exposing the depths of his vulnerability. He couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. He remembered being at the parent-teacher meeting, laughing with other parents, sharing stories of their kids. Now, Clara's words echoed through that same room, full of judgmental glances and hushed conversations. The power of social media surged through the hallways, lighting a fire under a scandal he never saw coming. Samuel recalled Clara's smile, how it lit up their living room on nights they'd made popcorn and watched old movies together. She used to love those moments. Now his heart ached. If only he could show people who he really was. Maybe writing testimonials would help. He reached out to friends and fellow teachers. "This is not who I am," he exclaimed in one email, his fingers trembling as he clicked send. As Samuel gathered words of support, every testimonial seems to underscore a deeper pain within Clara. Late that night, after hours of searching for answers, he watched her through the crack in her bedroom door. She was sitting on her bed, clutching an old photo, tears cascading silently down her face. Something deeper was at play, something he didn't yet understand. In a bold attempt to confront the storm brewing within their family, he walked into her room. "Clara, can we talk?" he asked, his heart hammering in his chest. She looked up, eyes wide, a mix of defiance and vulnerability glaring back at him. It was in that moment, as he sat across from her, that the dam broke. "I didn't mean for it to go this far, Dad," she sobbed, shoulders shaking as she felt the weight of years of unspoken hurt crash over her. "No one understands what I've been through. I just needed you to see me." Samuel's heart shattered at the sight of his daughter unraveling, torn between his own desperation to clear his name and the urge to gather her in his arms, to tell her it would be okay. But would it really? The chaos had just begun. As whispers in the town turned to heated debates, friendships were strained, and Clara's emotional state spiraled downward, Samuel felt the walls closing in. Would he stand firm to protect his reputation, or could he turn his focus to healing the rift between them? With the delicate threads of their bond stretching thin, a new wave of secrets loomed, ready to emerge. What lay ahead would test them both in ways they never imagined. Hey, before continuing with this incredible story, I have to warn you, many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's about to drop. And while you're here, give me a big thumbs up. That really helps with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting every amazing person who's part of this community. Your support means everything. Let's stay connected. Samuel sat on the edge of Clara's bed, tension heavy in the air. "I just need you to see me," she had said, and in that moment, he felt the weight of every word wrapped around them like a vice. Just when he thought they were beginning to connect, the sound of a loud crash broke through the silence. It came from downstairs, a violent shatter that echoed through the house. Clara jumped, her eyes wide, and Samuel shot up, heart racing. "Stay here," he said, though his voice didn't sound as strong as he wanted it to. He whipped around and dashed toward the stairs, each step crackling with adrenaline. Something was wrong. As he reached the bottom, his breath caught in his throat. The front door stood wide open, swinging on its hinges, cold wind whistling through the living room. The shards of glass glittered like broken stars across the floor. He stepped carefully over them, heart pounding, the feeling of dread tightening in his chest. "Hello?" he called out, voice wavering. No response, just the groan of the house settling around him. But then he heard it, a muffled sob from the back. It was Clara. He rushed toward the sound, anxiety gnawing at his insides. When he reached the kitchen, he stopped short. Clara was standing there, trembling, her phone in hand, her face pale as paper. "What happened?" he demanded, but the panic in his voice made him sound more frantic than he intended. It's Mom," she stammered, tears spilling over her cheeks. "She's on the floor. She's not moving." Samuel's stomach dropped. He dashed to the back room where Clara had led the way, the air thick with fear. And there, sprawled out on the tiles, lay his wife, Laura. God, how did this happen? He knelt beside her, his hands trembling. "Laura!" But there was no response. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow. Clara cried, "Dad, please!" He fumbled for his phone, hands shaking so hard he almost dropped it. As he dialed, the operator's calm voice felt worlds away. His heart raced as he pressed the phone to his ear. "My wife, she's unresponsive." Panic ricocheted in his chest while he kept glancing at Clara, her face twisted in horror as she knelt on the floor next to them. He could hear the sirens wailing in the distance. And then, in a moment that felt like an eternity, Clara's phone buzzed and lit up with notifications. It pulled Samuel's attention. In an instant, Clara grabbed it, her brows furrowing as she read the screen. The color drained from her face again, but this time it was different, a kind of fear he had never seen before. There's a video," she gasped. "Someone just shared a video of you. What do you mean?" he asked, horrified. "What video?" Her eyes met his, wild with disbelief. "It's you, at that meeting. You were arguing with Mr. Thompson." She took a shaky breath, eyes darting back to the phone. "And look, there are comments. They're saying you said racist stuff." His heart raced, panic twisting like a knife. "No, that can't be." But just then, the sirens grew louder, and he realized the weight of their situation had doubled. His wife lay unresponsive on the floor, and now his reputation, his very life, was unraveling in real time. Sirens blared outside, but inside, a different storm was brewing. He looked back at Clara, the truth painting her face with dread. "I have to see it," he said, body tense. "I have to know what they're saying." But as the emergency responders burst through the door, everything shifted. Their concern for Laura seemed like mere background noise. Samuel's heart sank deeper, realizing now his fight was twofold. Would he ever be able to mend his family while battling these terrible accusations? The chaos swirled around them as he braced himself for a truth he couldn't yet understand, leaving them all hanging on the edge. As the sirens wailed outside, Samuel's mind raced with chaos, desperate to understand how everything had spiraled so wildly out of control. He stood there, frozen, his wife on the floor, and the accusations clawing at him from the digital world. The paramedics rushed through the door, voices cutting through the tension, a flurry of movement and urgency. "Get back!" one of them shouted, shoving Samuel gently to the side. He watched helplessly as they knelt down next to Laura, the rhythm of their actions steady and practiced, but so alien to him in this moment. Clara stood behind him, her fear palpable, eyes wide, as her mother's lifeless form was surrounded by strangers now. "Dad, what's happening?" she whispered, voice trembling. But before he could gather his thoughts, the paramedics were already responding, the room filled with the sound of their urgent commands. "We need to check for a pulse," one said, focused. Another began to prepare equipment while the first called out, "What's her name?" "Laura," Samuel replied, heart racing. The weight of that one word seemed to shatter everything else around him. His phone buzzed again, but he didn't care. This was real. This was serious. As the team worked, Clara's gaze snapped to her phone, her face lighting up with horror. "Dad," she gasped, voice mere air. "You have to see this." "Not now, Clara," he snapped, fear mixing with frustration. But Clara's expression held something else, something darker. "Please," she insisted, eyes wide and frantic. I have to show you." Finally, he relented. She thrust the phone toward him, and he took it, confusion and dread swirling within him. As he glanced at the screen, his heart dropped even lower than it already had. A video clip, only a few seconds long, played before him. It was grainy, but unmistakable. He appeared at the meeting, standing too close to Mr. Thompson, their faces twisted in a heated argument. Samuel watched, unable to breathe, as someone edited the footage, splicing it with hateful comments and accusations that weren't true. "He's the real racist," flashed on the screen. But within the madness, there was something he noticed. Just behind him in the original footage, a flash of blonde hair, Laura stood, arms crossed, watching. Shock hit him when he realized she had been there all along. The very person he had devoted his life to was now implicated in this unwanted spectacle. "Is that Mom?" he stuttered, throat closing up. His eyes darted back to Clara, who nodded, tears streaming down her face. "She didn't say anything, Dad. She just stood there." The room seemed to fall silent, the paramedics prioritizing Laura, but now casting quick glances at Samuel. The weight of their combined gazes crushed him, each one echoing with judgment, each whisper threatening to blow the house of cards he had built. He turned back to Clara, needing her reassurance, only to find her staring at the screen again, her expression transforming to one of melancholy understanding. "I didn't want you to see that. I thought maybe she was on your side," she said softly, shaking her head slightly. Suddenly, the door flung open, and in dashed Jack, his best friend from down the street, breathless and wide-eyed. "I just heard," he shouted, completely oblivious to the chaos. "What's happening? You're in a video. Everyone's talking about it." "Shut the door," Samuel cut him off, desperate to shield Clara from any more chaos. But Jack's eyes landed on the screen, and horror flooded his face too. "Oh my God." Then, just as abruptly as he entered, Jack whipped around, dashing out of the room, his voice trailing behind him as he shouted, "You've got to see this, everyone!" With a faraway tremble, Samuel felt the world outside crashing in. Whispers turned to shouts, friends from the neighborhood, people from school, all rushing in, drawn by the turmoil. And then it hit him. How could they all possibly understand? The paramedics were still trying to revive Laura, and now the truth about his family unraveled in front of witnesses. Clara was crumbling beside him, tears falling like shattered glass. The family he thought he knew, was it all a lie? Time slowed as an icy grip coiled around his heart. In that dreadful moment, he realized the implications of Laura's silence at the meeting. The layers of her involvement twisted tighter around the deception. What else had she hidden? Anguish wrenched at his being as panic rose like a tide within him. What had she been hiding all along? Samuel's heart raced, the urgency of the moment eclipsing everything else. Clara's breath came in jagged gasps beside him. The paramedics focused intently on Laura, their movements a flurry of practiced skill. The world outside had slipped into a chaotic background. The whispers, the accusations, his crumbling reputation, all shadows against the bright glare of his wife's lifeless body. "Please, please," Clara whispered, her voice trembling as she held on to Samuel's arm like a lifeline. He wanted to reassure her, to say everything would be okay, but how could he? The shock of the video still clung to his mind, dragging him deeper into turmoil. The weight of guilt squeezed at his chest like an iron vice while he watched those skilled hands work. Hands that moved like they were fighting some unseen enemy. Then, suddenly, a deep, resonant voice sliced through the chaos. "What have you done, Samuel?" It was Mr. Thompson, the head of the school board, his tone thick with accusation, piercing through the frantic noise. Samuel looked up, eyes wide, confused as Thompson stepped further into the room. "What are you doing here?" Samuel forced the words out, dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. "I came to see if you were all right, but clearly, this is much worse." Thompson's eyes darted to Clara's phone, the video still playing, now surrounded by shocked glances from the paramedics. The man looked aghast, as if Samuel had committed some ultimate betrayal. "I didn't." "No, you didn't," Thompson interrupted sharply, "but you're going to pay for it, and God help you if she doesn't pull through." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. A tightening knot of dread formed in Samuel's gut. He turned back to Clara, who was shaking her head in disbelief, as if trying to shake off the words staining the air. "Dad, I don't want to hear this, not now," she cried, her expression morphing from fear to anger, her tears steaming down her cheeks. Samuel felt her pain, her frustration weaving into the very fabric of his being. Just then came a commotion outside. Voices yelled, and a group of town residents burst through the doorway like a tidal wave. Their faces were twisted with confusion and anger, the kind that pierced through Samuel's heart even more than the reality of Laura's condition. "Is it true? Are you really?" someone shouted, voice becoming drowned out by the rising tide of noise, eyes trembling in disbelief. "Wait, no!" It felt like the walls were closing in. Thompson raised his hand to silence them. "This isn't the place for this," he said firmly, but it fell on deaf ears. Samuel could feel their collective gaze burning into him, boiling with judgment, almost as if he were on trial here in his own home. Then a sudden crash echoed from behind him, shattering through the rising storm of chaos. A figure burst into the kitchen, the sound of shuffling feet and frantic whispers announcing her before Samuel even turned. It was Laura's sister, Diane, her face wrought with delirium. "Where is she? Where is Laura?" Diane's eyes darted from member to member, landing hard on Clara, whose confusion mixed with despair. "I can't. Clara's voice broke, overwhelmed as Diane approached with an urgency that made Samuel's heart lurch. With raw determination, Diane pushed through the crowd, gasping at the sight of Laura. "You need to stop this," she yelled, her voice a crushing mix of anger and fear. "You're not seeing the truth." "Diane, what are you talking about?" Samuel hesitated, panic surging. "None of this is as it seems." "There's something you don't know," she shouted, and at that moment, Clara's phone buzzed violently in her hand, a final notification that changed everything. Someone in the crowd, trying to reach for the phone, accidentally knocked it from Clara's grasp. It slipped through her fingers and landed on the ground, screen cracking. Samuel's heart dropped. The crowd gasped collectively, and beneath it all, Clara's face paled again. Then another notification, louder, clearer. Clara's breath hitched. "What is happening?" she gasped, eyes wide as the crowd fell silent, drawn to the screen. Tension thickened the air as the voice from the phone rose above them all. It played an unexpected recording, Laura's voice, shaky yet resolute. "If anyone hears this, they need to know the truth." Samuel's heart plummeted. What truth? What darkness had she hidden? The weight of all their secrets began to spiral uncontrollably into the open. The gravity of her words echoed like gunfire in the room. As the sound filled the air, chills raced down Samuel's spine. Nothing would ever be the same again. What had she done? And why had Laura recorded this? As he looked around the room, faces parsed with confusion but also violence, he felt the ground beneath him shift, wondering what this revelation might tear apart. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting to unravel their world? As the sound of Laura's voice crackled through Clara's phone, Samuel felt like he had been punched in the gut. If anyone hears this, they need to know the truth. Her voice broke the silence, and the room, filled with anxious faces, fell completely still. He could barely breathe as the weight of her words began to sink in, drowning out all other noise. "What truth?" he whispered, though he couldn't bring himself to raise his eyes from the device in his hands. The paramedics continued their work on Laura, but the reality of the situation shifted like quicksand beneath his feet. The nagging feeling in his chest intensified, pushing against the walls of his heart. Someone has to stop this," Clara screamed, but her pleas faded into the background, muffled by looming chaos. The voice on the recording continued, trembling with sincerity. "I've kept so many secrets for so long, but the time for hiding is over." Every word hit Samuel like bolts of lightning, the truth sparking questions he wasn't ready to face. He looked at Clara. Her face was pale, twisted in confusion and fear. "Dad, what does she mean?" Her voice quivered, each syllable heavy with an unspoken weight. But before he could respond, the recording cut out abruptly. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crash erupted from the back of the house. Everyone turned, eyes wide, breaths held. "What was that?" someone shouted, breaking the fragile stillness. The tension in the room crackled, thickening the air. "Stay here," Samuel barked, instinctively moving toward the source. The urgency propelled him forward. He didn't even think before taking Clara's trembling hand in his. "We need to see." They rushed through the dining room, still reeling from the recording's shadowy implications. He could feel Clara's heart pounding against his side. The dining table was set for dinner, a stark reminder of normalcy, but that normalcy had shattered like the glass on the floor. They entered the hallway, and then it hit them. A figure skittered past the kitchen doorway, sending a jolt of adrenaline coursing through Samuel. "Who's in my house?" he shouted, the protective instincts surging to the front. When he saw the figure, recognition slammed into him. It was Jeff, the local blogger who had been covering this entire facade, holding a camera up, recording everything. Panic flared within Samuel. "What are you doing?" But before Jeff could respond, a fierce clamor erupted behind him. The emergency responders sprang to life, shouting orders and scrambling for equipment. They were losing precious time with Laura, and Samuel felt a surge of helplessness wash over him. "Get out!" he shouted at Jeff, desperation weaving into his tone. Clara clutched his hand tighter, her eyes wide. "No, you need to see this," Jeff said, his voice shaking. He swung the camera toward the chaos, the lens capturing the moment. And then, without warning, the front door burst open. In charged a man, wild-eyed and breathing heavily. "Samuel!" he called, pinning every eye in the room back toward him. It was Tony, an old friend, his friend. "You have to listen to me." "What's happening?" Samuel shot back, confusion swarming his mind. Tony charged ahead, near hysteria gripping his features. "Your wife! I saw her!" Samuel's heart fell to the pit of his stomach. Saw her? Saw her doing what? "She was with them!" Tony's words came out rapid fire. "The group, Samuels! The group that's been spreading lies! I didn't know it until just now!" Everything froze. The watchful faces of the paramedics, Clara's horrified expression, and even Jeff's camera held captive beneath Tony's assertion. "With them? What do you mean?" Samuel could barely piece the words together, his mind racing to keep up with the deadly implications. "Your wife," Tony pleaded. "She's not who you think she is." In that moment, the air turned cold. Clara's grip on Samuel faltered. Around them, the hushed murmur of the crowd grew into a swell of confusion and sorrow. Everyone was searching for some kind of answer, but there was only chaos. Then the recording buzzed back to life in Clara's hand, and Laura's voice continued. "Samuel, I need you to understand. When I joined them, it was for you. I did it to protect you, but I never imagined it would come to this." The truth confronted Samuel like a freight train barreling down the tracks. Trust shattered in an instant, leaving questions swirling like a storm, twisting through everything he thought he knew about his life, his daughter, and especially Laura. "Protect me from what?" he said softly, as if afraid to hear the answer, afraid that with it would come the destruction of everything he held dear. As he searched Clara's eyes, desperately seeking reassurance, a chilling thought gripped him. What if Laura was the one orchestrating the very scandal tearing their lives apart? Whispers filled the air. What had she truly been hiding from him? The air felt thick as Laura's voice echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls like a pinball set loose in chaos. Samuel's heart pounded, a cacophony inside his chest. I need you to understand." Those words twisted in his gut, intensifying the panic that roiled beneath the surface. "Dad, what does she mean?" Clara's voice trembled, eyes wide, searching his face for answers he didn't have. Just beyond them, the paramedics continued their work, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The weight of the crowd's gaze, a mix of concern and judgment, only sent more knots in Samuel's stomach. As if the world had conspired against them, the front door burst open again. In came Officer Davis, the local police officer. His face was pale, urgency lining his features. "We've got a situation," he declared, stepping into the storm that was already brewing in the house. "What do you mean, a situation?" Samuel spat, frustration mingling with confusion. "Can't you see what's happening here? Listen, we're getting reports. You need to leave, now." The intensity in Officer Davis's voice sent chills down Samuel's spine. Clara's grip tightened on Samuel's arm, fear radiating from her like a beacon. "Reports? Of what?" "Your wife," Officer Davis said, his voice low but forceful. "There's an anonymous tip about Laura, something serious. We can't protect you if you stay here." "What do you mean?" The words escaped Samuel in a whisper, realization dawning slowly. A tip? About what? But before he could get an answer, a loud bang thundered through the house, shaking the very air. The front window shattered into 1,000 glittering shards, explosions of glass raining down like deadly confetti. Cries of shock erupted around them as Samuel instinctively pushed Clara behind him. "Get down," he barked, his heart racing and brain on high alert. The paramedics ducked for cover, and the crowd surged backward as panic set in. "Who did this?" someone shouted, but Samuel barely heard. The world seemed to spin as he turned, searching the chaos for any sign of a threat. And then he saw it. A figure crouched low in the yard, one arm raised, a weapon glinting ominously in the sunlight. Samuel's stomach dropped. "Clara, get inside!" he yelled, adrenaline flooding his veins. "Dad!" Clara screamed, but Samuel pushed her toward the kitchen, desperation fueling his actions. "Now!" In a frantic rush, they dove into the safety of the house. He locked the door behind them, panic flooding his senses. Breathing heavily, he turned to see the fear mirrored in Clara's eyes. "We need to—" But before he could even finish, a loud crash echoed through the hallway as someone kicked the back door open. Samuel's heart nearly stopped. "Laura!" he shouted involuntarily. That name hung in the air like a curse, twisting and tangling with all the unease from before. And then came a voice, dark, dripping with venom. "Look at you two, hiding like cockroaches. But oh, how the tables have turned." It was Greg, the classmate who had always felt like a thorn in Samuel's side, stepping forward from the shadows. A smug grin spread across his face, but behind him stood a line of people, half of them unfamiliar, yet the other half were people he recognized all too well. "Is that what this is all about?" Clara gasped, realization flooding her gaze. "You orchestrated this?" "Yes," Greg shouted, laughter bubbling up like poison. "It's all a game, Samuel. And guess what? Laura, she's been playing too." The revelation hit like a punch to the gut. Laura? In on this? It made no sense, yet everything shifted like a kaleidoscope spinning rapidly, revealing shapes that had always been hidden. "Diane," he heard Clara whisper, realization crashing down on them both like a wave. "How could you?" "Stay quiet, Clara." Diane's voice rang sharp, cutting through the chaos. "You don't know the half of it." Samuel staggered back, every word twisting the knife deeper into his heart. "No, no, this can't be happening. You're all wrong." But as he spoke, the truth clawed at his mind, tangling with memories of hushed conversations and Laura's secretive glances. Greg continued, reveling in the chaos, a puppeteer manipulating strings he never knew existed. The truth is, everyone loves a good scandal, especially when the target's a so-called hero. As realization crept in, Samuel felt the ground beneath him start to crumble. The entire world around him spun faster than he could grasp. Relationships shattered, secrets bared, and trust dismantled piece by piece in front of his eyes. And amidst it all, a sudden scream shattered the air. All heads turned, eyes wide with horror, as Clara's shriek brought a new wave of dread. At her feet lay Laura, writhing in pain on the kitchen floor, blood pooling beneath her. "Laura!" Samuel shouted, rushing forward, the very ground shifting beneath him. Would he lose her too? Everything spun out of control. All those glances from earlier resonated with newfound meaning. His voice trembled. "What have you all done?" As panic erupted and chaos consumed him, Samuel could only wonder, who could really be trusted? What had Laura been hiding? Everything was unraveling, and he was left searching for answers that now felt forever out of reach. As the frantic cries filled the air, something inside Samuel surged. He could almost feel the world tilting at an unnatural angle. Clara's scream echoed in his ears, mingling with the chorus of confusion from those gathered around. And then, just as he leaned down to reach for Laura, her body writhing in pain, he felt a rush of heat, the kind that builds before a storm. He had to do something. "Get back!" Samuel shouted at the others, his heart pounding against his ribs. The room was thick with anxiety, eyes darting between Laura and the other figures rising in the kitchen. Greg's smirk had vanished, replaced by a shadow of fear. Something terrible was happening, and every person present could feel it. Suddenly, Laura's body seized again, a violent spasm ripping through her. "Samuel!" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Confusion twisted his gut, the panic building heavier inside him. Clara's face was pale, mirroring a mix of shock and dread. "Stay with me, Laura. Stay with us." He knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he reached for hers, feeling the coldness radiating from her palm. But the air shifted again. From the chaos, a deep voice cut through, ringing with authority. "Step aside, everyone. Clear the area." Officer Davis barked, pushing forward through the throng. The paramedics absent-mindedly shifted their gaze between Laura and the electric atmosphere, indecision palpable in their eyes. Their urgency had created a suffocating bubble of pressure, each second stretching agonizingly long. "Move it, now!" With the chaos swirling like a tempest around him, Samuel could only look helplessly as they pushed him back. The stark realization was dawning. Things were unraveling. Then, as someone stumbled over the shattered glass, a gasp echoed. Clara's phone, still on the floor, flickered with activity once more. As Samuel turned, a notification lit the screen, the color draining from his face. "Dad, it's another video!" Her voice trembled, panic threading through it. "No, Clara, don't!" But she picked it up, eyes glued to the screen, watching horrified as the new video began to reveal itself. The room grew silent, the crowd outside forgotten, as whispers turned to shouts. There it was, Laura, talking to someone off-screen. "I never intended to hurt him," she said softly, a familiar intensity in her voice. "But I had no choice, for Clara's sake." "Wait, what?" Samuel fumbled for words, grappling with the tension building inside him. But it was Clara's expression that shifted from worry to disbelief, eyes widening in horror. "Who are you talking to?" she screamed, her voice fracturing the silence like glass breaking. "What is this?" Then the screen shifted, revealing a shadowy figure emerging behind Laura. Slowly, their face became clear. Diane. "No, no, no!" Samuel shouted, turning to confront Diane's wide-eyed stance in the kitchen. "You were in on this? What have you done?" He felt anger surge, but beneath it lay a sense of betrayal that felt almost physical, a weight pressing on his chest. But it wasn't over. As the camera caught the look on Laura's face, it was not fear, but something far darker. "I made a deal with some people. They needed a sacrifice." The room fell into a hush. The gravity of her words hung heavy in the air, an unspoken "what if" trembling with each heartbeat. The paramedics had stilled, eyes darting, absorbing the chaos that was spiraling once more. And just then, a new figure appeared through the shattered front door. It was Tony, the friend Samuel had thought might help, but the wildness in his eyes shimmered with a mix of guilt and fury. "You need to listen. This isn't just about Laura anymore." "Stop!" Samuel snapped, every nerve strained like a taut wire. "Enough with the games." "No, you don't understand," Tony pressed, almost pleadingly. "There's something she hasn't told you, something all of us have chosen to ignore." "Out with it!" Clara cried, grabbing Samuel's arm. Heart racing, Samuel braced himself. Laura was never just a victim in this. She orchestrated everything. Tony's voice thundered, but his gaze flickered toward Clara, his words laced with regret. Samuel's heart dropped as the pieces fell into disarray. Everything he thought he knew crashed around him like waves against jagged rocks. Was it possible? Had she truly played both sides? The air hummed with tension, a silent gasp echoing through the onlookers. Nothing would ever be the same again. And as Laura's eyes met his, desperation intertwined with something darker. That one look tore through all the bonds of trust Samuel thought they had shared. What if everything had been a carefully constructed facade? What had he missed? The shadows of betrayal loomed larger now, threatening to engulf all of them. What else had Laura hidden? What secrets had she spun into the fabric of their lives? And how deep did this betrayal go? As the air thickened with unanswered questions, Samuel knew they were about to venture into the very heart of darkness, and he wasn't sure anyone would come out unscathed. The tension in the room was suffocating. Laura's voice crackled through the phone, twisting intent and blame around Samuel like a noose. He could see Clara's face pale, eyes wide with the horror of discovering a truth that threatened to devour their family whole. "What are you talking about?" Clara shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. But before anyone could respond, a chilling silence settled over them all, broken only by the sound of Laura gasping for breath on the floor. Suddenly, from the back of the crowd, someone shouted, "Look out!" All heads snapped toward the sound, and Samuel instinctively threw his body in front of Clara. Another crash erupted outside, sending a wave of collective fear washing through the room. The front window shattered again, but this time it wasn't just glass that fell. It came with the furtive sounds of distant screams mixing with the chaos. The paramedics looked up, urgency shifting to confusion, mirroring the collective anxiety etched on every face. "Call for backup," Officer Davis barked, his eyes scanning the room. The crowd surged backward, an ocean of bodies retreating from the uncertainty looming around them. Clara's hand gripped Samuel's tighter, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. He could feel her trembling beside him. "Is it about Laura?" Tony's face twisted with concern, and Samuel hated the way his friend looked at him as if he were the problem. "No, stay back," Samuel yelled. "Get away from her." The sound of shattering glass echoed once more as a figure broke free from the crowd. It was Diane, wild-eyed and frantic. "You have to listen. It's not what you think," she screamed, drawing everyone's attention as her voice cut through the chaos. "What are you talking about?" Samuel snapped, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. He felt the urge to push her away, to protect Clara from whatever truth Diane would spit out next. But with wild gestures, Diane cried out, "You don't understand. Laura made a deal with them. I didn't know until recently, but—" "Enough!" Samuel roared, cutting her off. He clutched Clara's hand, desperation tangling with fury. Everything was unraveling, and he felt like he was losing control. Just then, the figures lurking in the back of the group began to shift, their faces painted with concern. One of them stepped forward, heart racing as he squeezed through the gathering. It was Jeff, the blogger, still holding his camera. "Wait," he breathed, eyes darting between the crowd and the chaos unfolding at Laura's side. "What now?" Samuel spat, tension thrumming through every inch of his being. "I found something. Footage of Laura. From before." Jeff's voice trembled as he hurriedly pulled up the video on his phone. The flickering screen revealed a small, dimly lit room, the camera angle shaky. Laura was there, her voice low and urgent. "I have to do this, for my family. They think they understand." Her words shifted, wrapping around a threat Samuel couldn't see. "But it's not just about them, it's about us. We have to make them listen." Samuel's pulse quickened as the camera panned to a figure, one who had remained hidden in the shadows. The moment he saw the familiar face, it was as if the ground dropped away beneath him. "Diane!" he blurted, realization crashing over him like a wave. "You've been working with her? With all of them?" Diane's expression twisted, a mixture of regret and anger flashing across her face. "I had no choice, Sam. Laura promised to keep you and Clara safe in exchange for my help." "Safe from what?" The room felt like it was closing in as whispers echoed around the crowd, faces sharp with disbelief. Before Diane could explain, a deafening noise erupted from the hallway, followed by a blinding flash. And then chaos descended. Everything happened in a heartbeat. A shadow lunged forward, gun drawn, pointing toward Laura. "Step away," rang a voice, authoritative and fierce. The figure standing wasn't just any stranger. It was someone Samuel recognized all too well. "Laura!" he shouted, heart racing as the scene around him darkened. The horror of betrayal cut deeper than any knife. But as the gun clicked, Samuel didn't know what to believe anymore. The truth blended into lies, each crashing against one another until everything fragmented, leaving him breathless and unable to move. Clara gripped his arm tighter, and he felt her fear echoing in his own. "What's going on?" she whispered, voice trembling. In that moment, with tension thick enough to choke on, Samuel knew they were standing on the precipice of catastrophe. Lives were hanging in the balance, and he was about to find out just how far the deception ran. The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat amplifying the chaos around him. Samuel could hardly comprehend what was happening. The gun pointed at Laura, the accusations, and now the revelation from Diane. It all collided in a swirl of confusion and fear. "Someone get her a medic!" Officer Davis yelled, and the paramedics stepped forward, urgency breaking through their shock. But as they approached Laura, a scream from Clara split the tension. "No!" And then, a sudden twist. A loud bang echoed in the house, a deafening explosion that reverberated through walls and into their bones. The temperature dropped. Every breath felt like ice as faces turned toward the noise, terror etched deeply in their expressions. "What was that?" Samuel shouted, panic surging. Before anyone could answer, there was a flash outside. A figure lurched in through the shattered window, dashing past the crowd. It was a police officer, wild-eyed and breathless. "Get down!" he yelled, shoving people aside. But as the figure pushed his way through, something flared from his pocket, an envelope labeled "Confidential." And then, without warning, the officer dropped to the ground, his body crumpling like a rag doll. Samuel's heart stopped. "No!" he howled, racing toward the officer. But Clara's grip yanked him back. "Dad, look!" she cried, pointing to the envelope that had slipped free, fluttering like a damaged bird to the floor. Samuel turned, watching in horror as it landed at Laura's feet. The paramedics were frozen, eyes wide, the world narrowing around the envelope that now held every secret, every lie, and more than he could ever imagine. With trembling hands, Clara bent to pick it up. "What is this? Is it—" Before she could finish, an ear-piercing static filled the room from Clara's phone. It lit up again, showing another notification, but this time not video, just words. The text message read, "The truth is in the letter. She can't be trusted. You know what she did." What does that mean? Samuel's mind raced. What truth? He could see Clara's expression shift, confusion morphing into a mix of fear and understanding as she looked between the message and her mother on the floor. "Wait, who sent that?" she whispered. But when she turned back, the atmosphere in the room shifted like a thundercloud rolling in. Off to the side, Jeff had moved to check on the officer, but even he looked drawn and pale, stuck between trying to help and being part of this chaos. "I don't think this is over," he muttered, eyes wide, as if he sensed something deeper. The crowd began to murmur, whispers curled through the air, growing louder as eyes darted between Clara and the fallen officer. Tension tinged with shock filled the room like smoke. And then it happened. Clara tore open the envelope, eyes scanning the contents frantically. "What does it say?" Samuel urges, but she was reading too fast, her face betraying the weight of the truth crashing down. Suddenly, her face turned a shade of white he'd never seen. She sold us out. Mom made a deal with the group, Dad. Clara's voice quivered, tears pooling in her eyes. She wanted to protect herself. Samuel took a step back, staggering as the reality hit him like a freight train. The room spun and narrowed as the murmurs grew. "What do you mean?" He could barely breathe. As Clara read on, words tumbled from her lips in a voice choked with disbelief. "The group, you know, the ones threatening the school. Mom said she'd help them take control if they left us alone." The weight of betrayal crashed down on him, shattering everything, every moment of love and loyalty he had believed shared. His own wife had planned to sacrifice their family for safety? "What have you done, Laura?" he said softly, the pieces of his world crumbling like dust. Everything he thought he knew twisted like shadows in the light, and his heart shattered with each breath. The crowd held its breath, the tension palpable. Clara's eyes were wide, mixing horror and fury. As Samuel looked around, the faces of everyone, friends, neighbors, witnesses, undercut with betrayal. Just then, the door swung open with a slamming thud. Another figure stepped in, drenched in rain, panting. "What the hell is going on here?" The new arrival froze, jaw dropping as he took in the scene before him. It was Jake, another teacher from the school, his gaze moving from the officer on the ground to the shattered envelope. Samuel felt the world go still, everything hanging on the precipice of an unspeakable truth. "Jake, you don't have to see this," he began, but he was too late. In that moment of silence, the secrets and lies hung in the air like a thick fog. The weight of what they had all done pressed in, and Samuel knew everything was about to change. What else had Laura hidden? Would they ever recover from this truth? The room was charged, every heartbeat echoing with dread. Samuel could feel the air growing heavier as Clara clutched the envelope, the weight of its contents pressing down like a stone. The confrontation had reached a boiling point, and everyone stood on the edge of chaos. Just tell me what's in there," Samuel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara glanced up at him, eyes wide, as if she were encountering a ghost. "Mom, she was involved with them," Clara stammered, her voice wavering. "She thought making a deal would protect us." Diane's face twisted with regret, and the humiliation flushed her cheeks. "I didn't think it would lead to this," she shouted, but no one was listening. Everyone was fixated on the interplay between Laura and the unexpected chaos spilling into their fragile reality. But then, amidst the fears, the hurt, the urgency morphed. There was a crackle in the air, a low rumble that seemed to come from all directions. And that's when the lights flickered. A flickering followed by complete darkness. The room went still, hearts stopping in that thick moment of uncertainty. Samuel reached for Clara's hand, feeling the grip of panic tightening. "What's happening?" Clara's voice trembled, rising above the startled murmurs. Then, without warning, the room erupted. A blinding light flooded back, oddly rhythmic, like the pulse of a heartbeat. But it wasn't the same. It felt menacing. A figure stepped through the doorway, framed by the chaos of light and dark. "Step back," came the booming voice, slicing through the fear. Samuel's heart sank as he recognized the voice. It was Mr. Thompson again. But he didn't look the same. There was something inhuman about his eyes, a glint of steel that sent icy fear racing down Samuel's spine. "What are you doing here?" Samuel demanded, trying to shield Clara with his body. Her grip tightened in fear, eyes darting between Thompson and the scene behind him. "This isn't just about Laura anymore," Thompson said, stepping closer. The sudden surge in his tone raised goosebumps on Samuel's skin. "She's not the only one keeping secrets." "Secrets?" Samuel echoed, confusion mingling with dread. "What do you want?" But Thompson didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat, pulling out something small and silver. Samuel's breath caught in his throat. This changes everything." Then he dropped it. It clattered to the ground, metallic, slick. Samuel's heartbeat raced as he realized it was a small device, like a voice recorder. It rolled toward Clara, stopping at her feet, the digital display blinking ominously. "Pick it up," Thompson demanded, excitement burning in his eyes like wildfire. "The truth is waiting for you." Beneath the sharp tension, the crowd's murmurs became a wave of confusion. "What is that?" Clara looked at Samuel, uncertainty mingling with dread. "We don't have time for games," Samuel shouted, shock morphing into anger. "Get away from her!" But Thompson didn't budge. In that moment, the house reverberated with shouts. Clara knelt down and grabbed the device, fingers trembling as she turned it over, and before Samuel could react, she pressed play. A static-filled voice boomed through the small speaker. "They think they know the truth, but they're wrong. Laura, Diane, they're all involved." The voice, distorted, echoed through the room, sending a shiver down his spine. "Who is that?" he demanded, horrified at where this was heading. "If Laura was going to protect you, she should have known better. I have everything recorded, and I'm ready to share it with the world." Clara's eyes widened, disbelief etched across her face. This can't be happening. With each word, the air grew thicker, a suffocating reality creeping in. The whispers swirling around them turned into gasps, shock lining every expression. Laura wasn't just playing the game, Thompson pressed, his voice more intense, hanging in the air like smoke. She was getting ready to switch sides, and suddenly, no one is safe. At that moment, the floor felt like it might fall away. Samuel turned to Clara, desperation smoldering in his eyes, but it was too late. Their world slipped through their fingers like sand. And then, just as the truth settled in, the device crackled ominously, and a new voice joined the fray, sounding eerily familiar. "Hey, Laura, it's me. I know you think this is for the best, but they're coming for us." Samuel froze, fear paralyzing him as he recognized that voice, someone they trusted. Everything he believed shattered as the reality of betrayal unfurled before him. Who else was in on this? Who could he trust? And as the light flickered again, Samuel realized the enemy was closer than he had ever imagined, leaving him to wonder, what had Laura truly set into motion?